In today's video, we're going to be talking about some common HTTP codes, and we're going to be going through the 10 most common that I see on a regular basis as a software developer. Alright, so let's go over the code groups. There's 5 code groups that we need to worry about. You've got 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s, and 500s. Fairly simple. Basically, any code that is at 500 would indicate a server error. 400 would indicate a client error, 300 redirection, 200 success, 100 informational. Basically, any code that fits into each category will fit into that category. So, like any of the 500s indicate server errors. All right, so start it off with HTTP 200. This is probably the most common one that you'll ever see. It indicates OK. Essentially, what this means is that you've made a successful request. The server's happy with what you did. Now, that could be a GET request, just asking for a resource, or asking for a website page to load. It could say, okay, here's a 200, here's your content back, and be happy. Or let's just say, yeah, it just is a generic use code. Anytime something is successful, you can use a 200. The 301, a little less common, but it is a permanent redirect. Basically, if you're at a resource, let's just say you have a resource like vltechnology.com/store or something like that, and I want to move it to a different website rather than having it on our main website or something like that, we could have a 301 sent back to redirect the client to the proper URL. Essentially, all it means is thing you're looking for at this URL is not here anymore. It's now somewhere else. Like if your neighbor moved a few houses down and you went to their old house, the new person there might say, hey, Joe doesn't live here anymore, he lives down the road, and point you in the right direction. 302 is a temporary redirect. Basically, it's as it sounds, similar to a permanent, except that it's only a temporary redirection. It doesn't exist there forever, but it's not here currently, might be back later, it's a temporary thing. 304 basically means what you're requesting has not been modified since the last time you requested it, so we're not going to go ahead and give you the resources again, just load your cache. This is mainly used by your browser. It's not really important for the end user to know. It's just used to make your websites load faster, a little bit of caching. 400 is an extremely common one when you're working with APIs. Basically, it is a bad request, and this could be anything about your request is wrong. Something is wrong with your request, so let's just say you're making a post request and you forgot to include some required data. Let's say you are trying to post a form where you're entering some email data and you forgot to include their email. Now your API might say, no, this is wrong, you didn't include the email, try again. Basically, that's all 400 means is, hey, your request is bad, please try again with the appropriate data, or what we're expecting. 401, unauthorized. This is the client did not provide valid credentials to access the resource. Basically, server's saying, hey, you either didn't provide credentials or some form of authorization or authentication, or what you did provide is expired, it's the wrong authentication. Either way, the server doesn't like what you provided, it doesn't think you're allowed to have the resource. So what 401 means is, hey, you can make the request again, but please provide the appropriate authentication when you do. So that could be adding a JOT token or something along that nature. It's a 403. It's very similar to a 401. It's a forbidden. Essentially what this is saying that yes, you provided valid credentials. We like your credentials. You logged in as Joe Schmo. We like that. We know who you are. We accept that. However, we do not think you have permission to access this resource. So let's just say, yeah, you log in as Joe Schmo and you try to access some HR API or some API you're not supposed to have access to. It'll throw you a 403 saying, hey, I know who you are, but you don't have permission here. Do not try this again as, you've already authenticated. You don't have permission to perform the action. That's the basis of it. Let's go ahead and look at a 404. This is another very common one. Whatever you're looking for is not found. There's no redirection. The server doesn't know what you're looking for. No resource has been found at this location. That's the basis of it. Now this can happen a very number of ways. An old bookmark. Maybe you have an old bookmark with old URL, and the server no longer has a redirect in place for that, or never put a redirect in place for that. Or typos are another common one. If you misspell an endpoint on Google.com or something, it might give you a 404 back saying, "Hey, I don't really know what you're looking for. The server's alive, but I don't know what you're looking for." Next one is a 500. This is an internal server error. Essentially, what this is saying is, "Hey, the server ran into a problem. Server might know what it is, but it doesn't care to tell you. All it's saying is, we ran into an error. We're unable to proceed. We can't fulfill your request." 500. Generally, good practice is to try to avoid sending this back whenever possible. We should always try to be descriptive of our errors to the users. Well, in cases where it makes sense to do so, but sometimes it's unavoidable. But sometimes if you don't have any data handling or error handling on your server, or poor error handling, you might be sending 500s back to the end user when all they did was forget to put an email in a form, which is not a good thing. You should always have good error handling, data validation, input validation, make sure everything's going in is correct, catch errors, send proper errors back to the client if possible. But sometimes, 500 can just mean, hey, server's acting up for whatever reason, database went down, something like that, something you didn't expect happened. Next one is a 503. Basically, it is a service unavailable. Common one for this is the service is overloaded. Like if you're going to a website that just blew up in popularity and hasn't had time to expand their server capacity yet, you might be getting a lot of 503s. The server's just saying, "Hey, I heard your request, but I can't do anything with you right now. Please don't, try again some other time. Service is unavailable." But basically, any reason this is usually used any reason the server might be unavailable for your request. But yeah, those are the 10 most common HTTP codes and some basic explanations. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe.